Hello, viewers at home. Welcome to this episode of the Garden State Sports Podcast. I'm Chase. I have my co-host Dylan here. And the Rutgers men's basketball schedule has recently just dropped. And after last season, which was a very interesting season for the Scarlet Knights, we're going to take a look at the schedule and see what wins and losses this team can leave with. And hopefully, can they reach the Big Ten tournament and maybe even their ticket to March that they missed last season. Starting off with Ryder. Really, these first five games, I don't think there's much worth going over. Ryder, Maine, Lehigh, American, Central Connecticut State. I really think five games that should be easy wins for the Scarlet Knights.
Yeah, no, for sure. We you say that easy wins now, but last year they tried to open up the schedule the same way going into the Players Eras tournament in Vegas, but you kind of had that track game at Kennesaw State, which was
Yeah.
a pretty rough loss. But I like that this year the schedule is kind of all home games. We start off with five in a row. I don't really see a trap game in these out of these teams. They're all kind of below average mid-major teams. So I do like how we start off with a pretty easy schedule before we get to the tournament and obviously Big Ten play.
Yeah, they talk about that tournament going into their next game right after Central Connecticut State facing the Volunteers over in Tennessee. Now, last year, Tennessee was, I believe, an Elite 18. They did lose a lot of key guys. They did lose Chaz Lanier, one of their best players. But they did come back retooled. They have Jacoby Gillespie, the transfer from Maryland, freshman Amari Evans, freshman Nate Ament. They bring some guys back from last year. This team is reloaded and retooled. So I'd hate to say that I foresee a loss for Rutgers, but we got to be real. This is Tennessee. So I do see this being their first loss on the season, but I don't think maybe this is a different opinion. I don't think this is maybe a big loss just because I don't think this will be the same team that they had last year. I'm really only seeing looking through this roster only really three guys that I believe can make an impact. Two of them are freshmen. So do I believe Rutgers can come out and maybe have an insane upset? I don't know. Could be possible. But I do see them taking a loss with the first one being the Tennessee.
Yeah, no, this game is gonna be we're gonna be underdogs. I predict Tennessee's gonna be ranked at this point in the season, barring they don't have an early season loss. But we're gonna be 5-0. I hope. Let's just say we're gonna be 5-0. There's momentum going into a tournament like that, and when this is a type of team which is there's no hype around us, and it's not like you have Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey where everyone's like, all right, Rutgers is going to be a lock for the tournament, and you have kind of have that pressure on you for two freshmen to just carry a team, right? This is like a typical Steve Michael team, which is like hard nosed on defense. You have long, lengthy, you have wings, you have good length all over the court. Everyone can guard 1 through 5. Like this is the type of team that Steve Pikiell has brought into tournaments and has gotten success, where you wouldn't think you have success. And so you walk into a Tennessee game. I think it's a trap game for the Volunteers more than anything for us. There's no expectations for us in this game, and there won't be any expectations all season. That's why I like how like this team can just go out and play their hardest without anyone expecting them to do good. I don't think that's where Rutgers strives.
Okay, next game in the Players Era Tournament, Notre Dame of a comeback game for the transfer Lino Mark, the guard for the Scarlet Knights. Personally, looking through this roster for Notre Dame, I see a Rutgers win in this one, and maybe especially if they do take down that trap game against Tennessee, I think Notre Dame would be an easy win for them.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it as well. I really can. This is definitely easier than Tennessee, on paper at least. And but the one thing that I do note is that Notre Dame has brought in a lot of the players from last year. They just kind of kept them
Yeah,
in the program, and you can kind of see that affecting it in a way because this Rutgers team is very new with each other. Same with
yeah.
last year. It's very new. They don't have a lot of chemistry, and Notre Dame keeps key players like Logan Imes, Marcus Burton, Braden Shrewsbury, which is a big one, and then I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, but Keba Naji. their center.
Yeah,
These are all players from last year's Player Airs tournament where um, Rutgers barely got through the win. And obviously, Matalako was the key player for Notre Dame last year and kind of got
yeah,
them to that close game. But with how much chemistry this Notre Dame roster is going to have together, I can really see this being almost a more important game for Rutgers because you kind of want to see if this group of players can kind of beat a team that is good but not as good as like the upper tier players or upper tier teams that are in play.
yeah. After this, we're walking into some conference play, starting off with Purdue. Um, Ever since Zach Edey touchdown over in Indiana, Purdue has been a stalwart in college basketball, and they're returning three of their key guys that have been key guys for a long time: Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, the Player of the Year finalist last year, and Trey Kaufman-Renn. Um, Especially with this one being home, um, this really, I really think Rutgers winning their games deeper into the year all depends on that first win against Tennessee. Because that being a win or loss gives me perspective on, okay, if they can beat a team like Tennessee, who was an Elite Eight team, can they go out and beat a team like Purdue, who was also an Elite Eight team, but this time at home? Whereas compared to the Tennessee game, that's at a tournament, that's a neutral site. If they can beat a team like Tennessee away from their home, and they can go to back to Piscataway and beat Purdue at home. But still, Braden Smith is an amazing player. Fletcher Lawyer is an amazing player. Trey Kaufman-Renn is an amazing player at the rim. Um, no bias aside, nothing depending on anything. I see a loss for Rutgers in this game.
I will agree with you on that one, but you know what happens when Rutgers plays Purdue. Bad things for Purdue every year.
Yeah,
It always seems like Rutgers plays Purdue at the time where Purdue's reaching their peak of the season. They're feeling confident. Rutgers is kind of low. They're kind of coming off a few losses, and then they play their greatest game all season. And we always schedule Purdue early in the Big Ten season. I don't know if that's like a scheduling, just how it is in the Big Ten, but we always have them early. And it seems like they come out of non-conference play with like kind of like a chip on their shoulder, and they want to walk in. They want to walk into their home arena and show the fans that this is going to be a good season. And I see that. I see like the way the schedule is that Purdue is just sitting there. You sitting there after two such hard games. They're like, all right, they're going to come out. They're going to be rusty. They're going to be like tired from these two games. I see a team that's going to be really motivated for no matter what happens at the tournament. Either they're motivated after two or one win, or sorry, there's three games, right? But or a team that's going to be down and they're going to want to pick themselves up with a big win. And obviously, Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn, probably the best, maybe the best like point guard, center, like forward duo in the whole nation. And they're both going to be like finalist contenders for National Player of the Year, maybe when it comes down to all. But there's something about Purdue when they come to Piscataway and when they come to Rutgers Arena, it's just different. And I really just see a motivated team in this game because when you pick up you start Big Ten play and you see like the gauntlet obviously that you face later, picking up the first win, getting your team like going is so huge. And I really do think that this is a game that is going to be much closer than what the spread or what people think at the time.
yeah. Coming off of Purdue, then going straight over to Ann Arbor to face the Michigan Wolverines. Now, Michigan was a team that lost a lot of key guys from last year. Danny Wolf, Vlad Golden, just to name a few. But they were one of the teams that were high in the media in the offseason and retooled heavy. Returning Namari Burnett, getting the transfer from North Carolina, Elliot Cadu back, the New Jersey native. Winters Grady, the freshman coming in. Roddy Gale Jr. staying. They brought in a lot of guys. Adai Mara, the center coming from UCLA. Yaxel Lendeborg, the forward from UAB. They brought in a lot of guys. And Michigan has been seen throughout the offseason as a favorite to maybe go deep into the Final Four, maybe a national championship, where they got close last year. So, personally, dealing with a team like this, especially in Ann Arbor, in a away game, I see a loss for Rutgers in this one, indefinitely.
Yeah, I'll keep it straightforward. I think this is a really a loss. We never do good against Michigan in general, let alone in Ann Arbor. So I think you could suffer a loss. You're going to suffer plenty of losses. This is probably a loss.
Next game going to West Orange to play Seton Hall, the rivalry game. Seton Hall last year, that was an amazing game, the amazing Dylan Harper game winner. But Pirates did retool a little bit, getting the transfer out of Merrimack, Bud Clark, who did a little bit of damage against Rutgers last year, now going into the rivalry game. But um, last year, it was a much closer game than people thought. I don't know if Ace Bailey was playing in that Seton Hall game or not, but they still did have Dylan Harper on the floor, and that was a much closer game than I certainly predicted. So I don't want to go out and say that it's a win straight up just because this is Seton Hall. It's a rivalry game in college basketball. Anything can happen at a game like that, especially with this one being at Seton Hall. This is the first one I'm going to say I'm not sure if this one's a win or a loss, at least for me.
No, for sure. Last year, Ace Bailey was playing in that game. He had a clutch three at the end, but that was closer than honestly it should have been with how bad Seton Hall was. That was a testament to how bad we were as well. Like just two bad teams. But this year, it's kind of funny you say Bud Clark. That was someone that Steve Pico was going heavy after in the portal early. Really wanted him, and we played against him. He cooked us, and he went to Seton Hall, which I believe is just they have more money as a Big East team. No
Yeah,
football team. All the funds goes to the basketball team, but that's a game where it's like, all right, you're going away on a rivalry game, as you said. Like Seton Hall, it's going to be whoever wants it more, really. And recently, Rutgers has wanted it more, but it really that's like a swing game.
yeah, that's what I really think. Next two games after that are Penn and Delaware State, two games that I think are easy wins for the Scarlet Knights. Then really settling into conference play after this, going home for Ohio State. Ohio State returning a lot of two guys that were key last year, John Mobley Jr. and Bruce Thornton, their key backcourt. Gabe Cupps, the transfer from Indiana, coming in this year, brother of Tyler Hero, Miles Hero, coming in for Ohio State. But personally, I think that Rutgers could walk away with a win, especially at home in this game. When they do, if they don't play them again. But personally, I think that Rutgers could walk away with a win. I don't think that. I think that if they can seal off one of their two major guards, Mobley Jr. or Thornton, then I think that they can come a win. Especially you mentioned Steve Pikel teams are very hard-nosed defensive teams, so I certainly think they could shut down at least one of the guards in that backcourt and walk away with a close, hard-nosed, tough, but at the end of the day, a win is a win.
Yeah, out of all the Big Ten teams you have, like Ohio State isn't like what you call like the tier one teams, like really scary teams that kind of like you mark off as a loss. So at home, you get this team at home, as you said, defense. It's gonna be a defensive game, I believe. I do like Devin Royal. Devin Royal, they're kind of their forward. I think he's a beast. Um, but it's gonna come down to the guards. It's gonna come down to if we can kind of spread the floor on offense, if we can get a bucket when we need to.
Absolutely. The next game, Oregon, another one at home. Oregon did return some guys: Jackson Shellstat, Kwame Evans Jr., Nate Biddle, three guys that were key in their March Madness run last year. Um, but unlike the Ohio State did have their key guys, but Ohio State was not a team last year that went. I don't even think went to March Madness. Um, Oregon was a team that went deep, I believe, Elite Eight and Elite Eight or Sweet 16. I know they did take that loss to Arizona, but this was a team that went deep, and a lot of people had favorited. So I don't really think that Rutgers can walk away with a win here. They do have the transfer big center Bayfall, but dealing with two guys like Kwame Evans Jr. and Nate Biddle, two guys who were so dominant in the paint last year for Oregon, and especially a passing guard like Jackson Shellstad, which is why they were so good last year. I don't think that Rutgers walks away with a win in that one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's just gonna be a difficult game to guard them because Biddle can stretch the floor. Kwame Evans is like a paint player, and Jackson Shellstad's just he's one of the best guards in the Big Ten. So
Yeah.
you take losses here, but it's not the end of the world.
After that, Rutgers goes over to Illinois to play the Fighting Illini. Illinois losing a lot of key guys from last year, but one guy they did bring back, their guard, Killen Boswell. Just an amazing guard throughout all of his college career. Bounced around in the transfer portal a little bit. And then a big guy that I was high on last year, one of my favorite players in college basketball as a whole, Andrej Stojakovic, a transfer from California, coming over the Fighting Illini this year. Um, Another guy, Zvonimir Ivisic, um, and his brother Tomislav Ivisic, two guys, two big centers for the Fighting Illini. But other than that, really two guys I see here that are big threats for Rutgers, Killen Boswell and Andrej Stojakovic. And if this could be the defensive team that Steve Peichel likes to play, I think that they can get away with a win here. At home, at Illinois, I'm not sure. That could be a very tough game. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a loss. But I think that Rutgers can get away with a win there.
Yeah, no. I mean, I actually don't even know when the last time Rutgers actually got a win at Illinois. We're terrible in that environment for some reason. It's like even on our good years, we never get a win there. But yeah, no, they went Illinois went heavy in the transfer portal this year. They got a lot of guys, probably spent a lot of NIL money because these are big players. Ivisic, Zvamir Ivisic was a transfer from Arkansas, and
Yeah.
obviously Stojakovic from Cal. So those are going to be big players for them to add on to their already really good roster. So that's I'm kind of leaning towards the loss for that game.
Next up on the schedule, Northwestern. Other than Jake West, I don't really see any guys on this team that are a big threat for the Scarlet Knights. I think they walk away with a win there. But the game after that, the Wisconsin Badgers, a team who a lot of people had last year as their favorite to win the national championship last year, they did take an early exit, but and they did lose their major guy, John Tonge. But I believe they retooled well, especially with their guard, Braden Carrington, the senior. Um, I'm not sure about this one, especially with it being at Wisconsin. I'm not so sure about this game, personally.
Yeah, honestly, like looking at the roster, yeah, John Blackwell, he's really good. Nolan Winter, he's been here in the program for a while. I'm not like familiar with a lot of these players, and like throughout the early season, like you'll kind of get to know who's going to be their leader and stuff. But this is another game where I think Rutgers has a good shot in actually winning, and like Nick Boyd, he's a good player. He's I believe a transfer from San Diego State. Um, he's going to be a difference maker, but like out of the Big Ten teams we play, I see this in Northwestern being a little two-game stretch where it could regain some momentum after starting a rough Big Ten slate and kind of enter this like mid-January slate that gets difficult with actual good momentum. So I like the two teams that we have kind of in the middle here. Um, it might be helpful for the end of the season.
Next game at Iowa, I believe that one would be a win. Iowa has not been the greatest team in basketball as a whole. On the men's side, at least. Women's side, they're dominant. But next game, Indiana at home. Indiana was a big story out of the all season, losing almost every single one of their players to the transfer portal last year. And now coming in this year, I think that this is a win just because this is a group of guys that really has not played with each other, and only being in January, I don't think that their chemistry is going to be up to where it needs to be yet to beat a team like Rutgers. Now, Rutgers is a portal heavy team too, but they do have returning guys. They do have guys like Jamichael Davis, who is returning. They do have guys like Dylan Grant, who is returning. Bryce Dorich is returning. They do have a lot of guys that are coming back for this program. So I think this is a win against Indiana.
Yeah, it's almost like Indiana's always like this, kind of a dysfunctional team in my opinion. High expectations going into the season, and then like they kind of collapse early. And they did the same thing last year, collapsed in their Atlantis battle for Atlantis tournament early. But it's funny, we have this international player on our team, Harun Zerno,
Yeah.
who I believe might be our best shooter on the team, or the team in a while. He actually, believe he was committed to Indiana, and then once Mike Woodson, I believe, was fired, Arizona decommitted, and then Rutgers went heavy after him. He came here. It's kind of like not like a homecoming, but kind of like an interesting storyline there. I see that being a win. That's going to be I think, pretty entertaining game. Could go either way, but I can see Rutgers picking up a win there.
Next game after Indiana is Tom Izzo and the Spartans over at Michigan State coming over to Piscataway. Two guys returning from Michigan State that were huge last year, Jeremy Fears Jr. and the high flyer Cohen Carr. Now, a Tom Izzo team, no matter how good or bad they are, will never be an easy game to play. So I believe that this is a loss just because of how good of a coach Tom Izzo is, how great of a player Jeremy Fears is, and how good of a rim player and potentially a shooter developing this year Cohen Carr is. I think with I think with those two alone and the coaching of Tom Izzo, Rutgers is going to have their hands full.
Yeah, I think I've said this quite a few times today, but it's kind of a trend to Rutgers over the years in the Big Ten. But Michigan State's another team that I just, in recent memory, I don't remember. Like, obviously, they had that one win in MSG 3 years ago, maybe, but it's just a team that Michigan State has Rutgers' number, and they've always had our number. And it's just like something about these Tom Izzo coach teams that on paper, like, all right, they're going to be like an average team, and then they always just play better than they're supposed to be. And throughout that process, they always beat Rutgers. And I like this roster for Michigan State. I love Cohen Carr. I think he's amazing to watch. So yeah, I can see this being a win for the Spartans.
After that, the Scarlet Knights take a little bit of vacation, flying out to LA for a few days to take on USC and UCLA. Now, USC in the past has been a dominant team in college basketball, one of the premier names, but as in recent history, ever since the hire of Coach Eric Musselman, um, they haven't been the team that they've been known to be. They do have some guys coming in. Elijah Arenas, son of Gilbert Arenas, an amazing guy. Chad Baker Mazzara, the what I believe now seventh year player transfer from Auburn. Terrence Williams, the big man from Michigan. They do have some guys coming in that can play, but USC always has guys coming in that play. And last year, I believe they were in. I forget what it's called, but the postseason tournament that's in Vegas. Um, but they were not a very good team. So I believe that in LA, they can come away. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights can come away with a win. But against UCLA, a team who was in the tournament last year, they did get some great transfers. Xavier Booker, the big man from Michigan State, Donovan Dent, the guard who starred for New Mexico in March Madness. They are returning guys as well, like Sky Clark. Um, I believe that this one will be a loss um, at the Wooden Center in UCLA.
You know, I fully agree with your takes there on USC and UCLA. Shout out the schedule makers for getting these two West Coast opponents back to back, so we don't. So I believe they're gonna probably stay
Yeah,
in California. Like they're not gonna go back. That's big. That's big for like traveling. It's big for like That's like I really like that. That's gonna help a lot for both those games, like kind of being adjusted to the time zones for at least UCLA. But yeah, no, UCLA looks really good on paper. I love Donovan Dent as a player. Um, I thought he was a beast last year. Almost pulled it off in the Sweet Six in the round of 32 against Michigan State. They were right there all game. So that was a dangerous New Mexico team led by him. So
yeah.
I can see UCLA being really good this year. USC last year during the regular season we really like we handled them pretty easily, but then they had our number in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, which was it's a pretty upsetting loss in like double overtime. But I don't think they're going to be amazing. Chad Baker Mazzara, he's the only guy who stands out to me as like one of those star-studded players. And so I do think that USC is a very winnable game, and UCLA is kind of a not a toss-up. I think it's more leaning to the Bruins, but you never know.
After the trip in LA, Rutgers hits a bit of an easy cruise schedule facing Nebraska, Maryland, Penn State, Minnesota, Washington, and Maryland again. Um, Only game throughout the 6 game stretch that I would see as a threat is Maryland, but after the leave of Kevin Willard, Derek Queen is gone, Jacoby Gillespie is gone. I don't really see this Maryland team as a threat, so I see these 6 games as 6 quick wins for the Scarlet Knights.
Yeah, you would hope so. Looking at this, like you really like if we're talking about a Rutgers team that has hopes of even making March Madness, or at least like being in like that Big Ten tournament playing to make it, you're gonna have to win these last. You're gonna win at least 5 of these last 6 games because your middle of your schedule is so difficult with the amount of like projected top 25 teams you're gonna play that when it comes down to like crunch time in the season, you need some wins. You're gonna need to pick these up. I agree that Maryland's the most intriguing one. There, Miles Rice, transfer from
Indiana.
Indiana. He's a beast. I think he's like he didn't look great last year, but he's such a good playmaker that I think that he's gonna fit perfectly on this team. And then they brought in quite a few transfers. As they did bring in the Texas A&M coach, was a great hire. So I think Maryland's gonna be good this year. One thing that just like kind of like catches me is that we play our the three teams we have a home and home with, Michigan State, Penn State, and Maryland, are all in the back half of the schedule. Like we play those teams like combined 6 times in the back half of the schedule. So I wonder if like the times we play each team second is kind of you get to know the team. If the
Yeah.
result's going to favor Rutgers, um, I would hope so. As we play like Penn State to wrap out the season at home and like Maryland and Michigan State away right before that. So those games are going to be like something we need to win, and I hope that at least as a fan when we get down there, it's going to be like, all right, we're playing to make the tournament, we're playing for something, not just playing for like a seeding in the Big Ten tournament. Like I think those are going to be fun games.
That wraps up the regular season. Now, walking into the Big Ten tournament, ideally, Rutgers makes it.
Actually,
But,
they changed it to every team actually makes it a couple recently, like 5 days ago or something.
mm,
So now we're locked to make it at least.
that's the minimum. But you have the teams like Oregon, teams like Illinois, Michigan, Purdue, Michigan State, the teams that we had on the schedule as losses for Rutgers. So going into the Big Ten tournament, now as you mentioned, the second or third time you see these teams, you know what you're looking at. You know what you're going to go against this time. So how far do you see Rutgers getting in the Big Ten tournament? Ideally, but realistically.
So for seeding at least, realistically, I'm thinking it's going to be in the range of 12 to 16. It could be 12. A 12 seed in the Big Ten tournament could really mean you're like 18 and like 13 for all you know. That's like a record that if you get a few wins in the tournament, you can get into you can get to March, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a range where we're going to be, and that means you're going to play on day two, right? The new format's day two. So the teams we're going to face, it's going to be something like a Wisconsin or an Ohio State or a USC maybe or a Nebraska. You're going to face some of these average Big Ten teams, and those average Big Ten teams that you're going to face are going to be also teams that are going to be playing for a spot in the tournament. So the Big Ten tournament this year, with every team making it, it's going to be high intense games. Most teams can't suffer a loss, or else their chances of March are over. So I think that Rutgers is going to be in a few games that are going to matter a lot, and it's going to be interesting if how do they handle that, how they attack those games. If they're going to be like hard nosed defense, like you hope that mentality stays. You hope that is their mentality throughout the season. But it's something to watch. I mean, we're talking about this in September. Season will start for a couple months. You're not really not going to get a sense of what the team is and what Big Ten teams are like till maybe December, January. So we'll see how that goes. But the schedule doesn't look too bad. Other teams have it worse. I think that we really can get off to a good start in non-conference, and if we pick up a win or two in Vegas early, that's going to set up good momentum going into Big Ten play. So I do think that this is going to be a more successful season that people are slating it off to be.
Final question to close out the episode. Now, we'd love for Rutgers to win the Big Ten tournament. We'd love it. But let's stay honest here. Not going to happen. So, assuming that they do get the tough wins, they do make it into the later days of the tournament, they make it to March, what would you say the ideal seeding is for Rutgers?
In March Madness, ideal would be like if we're seeing realistic ideal, I would say 5 to 7, somewhere in that range,
Okay.
right? Realistically, if we do get in, it's gonna be at an 8, 9, or 10. I don't think it's gonna be higher than that because if you go higher than that, you're gonna need to be like a max 10 loss team. And I see like a guaranteed 7 to 8 losses almost, like on paper at least. And then I see so obviously it's the Big Ten. You're gonna get toss up games. You're gonna get bad losses. You're gonna have some big wins. So it's just so volatile. So I do see us being like a 9 to 10 seed if we get in. But like it's just really I think if we're gonna get there, we're gonna find our playmaker because on paper, it looks like we're gonna be good on defense. We're lengthy. We have good wings, good like size all around. But you don't. It doesn't. There's no like player that screams like playmaker. Like, give me the ball. I'm gonna get a bucket when you need it. Like we did last year with Dylan Harper. We don't have that. You would hope Tariq Francis, transfer from NJIT, can fit into that role, but he's an undersized guard. He's a 6'1", 180. Um, he can get a bucket at NJIT, but that NJIT team won like 7 games last season. He was averaging 20 something on a terrible team, so he was taking a lot of shots. He was kind of their only player. So besides that, like I don't want to rely on a freshman again. They're all 4 stars or lower, nothing like a 5 star. So we're gonna really have to find that one player that's gonna do that for us, get a bucket when we need it, and kind of lead us through games when it's like defensive games when you really need a bucket. Because other teams that I'm looking at right now, besides like a Northwestern, they have that. Like in Iowa, they have those players. So I think that Rutgers, if they find that player, yeah, March Madness is definitely in sight. But until then, it's gonna be like an uphill battle.
And that will wrap up the episode of the Rutgers schedule review. I'm Chase with my co-host here, Dylan. This has been a Garden State Sports episode, and we will see you in the next one.